This is Casey Grello from Queensryche. You're watching Drums and Guns with Brian and Jason. Check it out.
Now I have the line, "This beagle is not enough," kind of in loop in my ear. It's kind of like the James Bond, "The world is not enough."
Right.
No, it's actually, "This beagle is not enough."
This beagle is not enough. Yeah. But yeah, no, I was thinking about that because, I see them on deer, I see them out there, and you see them on rabbits and everything like that. At some point, maybe there's that tick that just fucking fell off and it was pregnant.
That's disgusting. A pregnant tick.
Oh yeah, the larvae in general when impregnated is a disgusting concept.
But you mentioning the orca, the pods. So one of the saddest music scores I've ever heard. I was watching some National Geographic show, and this score, this is actually about music, and the score to this National Geographic was so sad because they were showing this orphaned orca, little baby orca. I honestly don't remember, but I just remember the presentation. It was like off in the distance, you see this group of angry, hungry sharks and this poor orca that had like some deformity, so it only had one little flipper, and it's just going moo, trying to swim, and it's like the music is like, and I'm just like, this is horrible. Like, I can't watch this. But it ended up
being manipulated by the music.
I was. I don't know who scored it. I don't even remember, but they did a brilliant job. I was bawling. And the music was a lot, but it was so sad. You think about a deformed orca trying to survive, and it's alone, and there are sharks, and it's mooing. Do they moo? Is that moo? They moo.
Do they now? I don't know. I don't know if that's the sound that they make or what.
Maybe he knows.
Well, Mike lives in down there in California. He should know all about it.
I can't hear him.
Are you there?
Yeah. Okay.
I got this.
There.
I got this. I think I got this.
Why'd they put it on that part of the mic?
Ask me why I have bad cables. How the fuck? Is that better?
There you go.
I think that's yep. Anyway, what was the question there?
Do orcas moo?
Couldn't tell you. I don't know shit about orcas. I do watch that stuff on YouTube quite a bit on just Animal Planet stuff. It is fascinating. The more you learn, the more we learn.
I had
and its integration in music.
I had kind of prepped Jason. So yeah, let me introduce you guys. Okay, so Jason.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, is that how I pronounce it, Jason?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And of course I'm Brian. But anyways, so I had told Mike about that one time when you and I were at Bizarro, and we were having dinner, and we were talking about Mac computers and talking about the new OS system with the multi-levels and all that kind of crap. And those ladies were craning their necks trying to. What'd you just do?
I uncrossed my leg and it caught a cable.
Oh,
sorry.
Okay. Well, hey, at least it wasn't a knife that fell off the counter and went into your thigh.
It was. But
it could always be worse. I mean,
so
yeah,
okay.
And so those ladies, and those ladies that were craning themselves trying to overhear our conversation, and then the conversation rapidly went to a 180 into a completely guttural type scenario, and the woman falling out of her chair.
Yeah, I think we changed it. Well, we changed it. We acted like we were producing a porn, I think. And
as you should be. Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about those productions soon. Actually, we need somebody to help us with the score. But yeah, she literally almost fell out of her chair, as I recall.
Yeah, it was the introduction of the talent. But yeah, I told him we wouldn't go too deep into that.
No, see, if that were in L.A. though, that person would be there more like, so you're shooting porn. How can I? They want to be involved in it, and then,
Yeah, let's go to Chatsworth.
You know what I mean? Because that's always been a question for me is how does one study to be a professional porn star? Because it's acting to a certain extent, right? I mean, you have to act like you're enjoying what's going on because it happens so often to you. It's like scratching a sore after a certain point. But after screwing, well, I mean, you're banging 20 girls a night, whatever.
I guess it's a calling. No, I mean, you've got to have some skills. I think you've got to be that likes you first of all, and it's porn. I don't know. They're not, it's a limited degree of acting, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some of it just comes naturally.
Yeah, because, with professional actors in Hollywood, well, we're talking about LA anyway, aren't we?
Even then.
But yeah, so with, take your Harrison Fords, your whatever, you'll have those people that are method actors. So now do you have porn stars that are actually method actors that stay in role, the whole time?
I don't know about that. It's that's an interesting industry, though. I mean, obviously it's big in LA. A lot of porn stars live in downtown LA, and Chatsworth was the sort of breeding. Most film was shot in Chatsworth, but I don't know how that industry really survives with the digital distribution these days. And people, when we were kids, remember, you really had to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that industry really survives or not, but it does. It's still a multi-billion-dollar industry. It is monetized heavily.
Yes,
advertisements and
it makes
whatever
billions, and I'm very curious as well how, because they're I think it goes by the concept of like a crack dealer, right? That goes out there and gives you that little taste for free, and then you're going to come back asking for more, and that's when you start paying. Well, I think the
sites let you have a little bit, and then you can subscribe to see the full thing. But how many people do that? And how many people? I don't know. I know one thing. I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, the one site, I think it was Chatterbait, had like a 400% increase in revenue right away. I think all porn did.
Yeah, and then there's that part of me that thinks that maybe it isn't that at all. Maybe in fact, the porn sites are kind of becoming like all those clickbait sites, right? So that they're getting paid through advertiser dollars, not really through subscriptions.
I've heard of. I mean, somebody talked about this recently. I don't remember the details. It is heavily monetized, and there is something about the clicks, and there is something about the sites referring to other sites, and I suppose there's still enough people subscribing. In the tube sites, I think it's, you have these more personalized sites now where you can have one-on-one contact with, like the FaceTime kind of actual thing. What's the OnlyFans site that's really big? Do you know that one? Yeah, OnlyFans. That's like, well, OnlyFans is what's taken that to the next level. There's people on OnlyFans. So that's like a site where I'm not on it. I know that there's straight up porn stars that are on it, and you can pay for a personalized experience. You log in and you're in that room with that person, but it's more mainstream than that. Celebrities and people. There's a lot of people like comedians who put their feet on there. The OnlyFans, just their feet or just fetish stuff, and they're making huge amounts of money. OnlyFans is. And it's a subscription. That one is a certain amount per month. Or no, I'm sorry, it's actually per person. You pay whatever that person's fee is, whatever their rate is to visit that person on OnlyFans. So it might be this much for one person and that for another. But somebody had recently made $1 million in one day or in less than a day on OnlyFans, and it was a big celebrity female actor actress, and she wasn't doing hardcore porn. She was doing like foot fetish stuff and just weirder stuff. But yeah, she was the first one just a couple months ago to make like $1 million in some 6 hours or something of being on OnlyFans. It's
Wow.
amazing.
Wow. Yeah, because gosh, I was going to talk about that.
But your pending career in porn?
No, it's interesting that everything these days, monetization is not necessarily the creation of new goods or creating of a new industry per se. It's all virtual.
Look at EFTs right now.
EFT.
You're not on that one. EFTs, that's the okay. It's like Bitcoin, but for digital rights. So people are selling digital versions of, in some cases, physical things, in some cases, non-physical things, like the Jack Dorsey, I think, Twitter founder, sold the first tweeted on Twitter for, I don't know how much it was, $1.8 million or something. Somebody bought that. So it's digital rights. There's artists that are making a lot of money selling. So they put a painting or a work up, and I don't think it's even a physical painting in this case. I think it might be just like a digital painting, but selling ownership to that painting online and making, again, astronomical amounts of money. So music, if you think about it, has always been and I don't understand, it's NFT, not EFT. And I don't know what the NFT stands for. We'll have to Google that while we're on here. But music is the thing that's picking up a lot of steam there right now. People selling music. So I think Mike Shinoda just sold a song he wrote. I donated everything to a charity, but he sold it through NFTs and raised, I don't know what it was, $100,000 pretty quickly as an NFT. And he remarked that was more money than he would have made had he released the song through all 3 or 4 major digital streaming outlets for the next 2 years. He made in a couple hours selling it as an NFT. So it's ownership of digital rights, but look into it. It's pretty cool. It's sort of the early, people are getting in on it right now on the stocks for it. It's sort of the thought about as the Bitcoin of second generation of Bitcoin, but digital rights.
Yeah, because when you were initially talking about it, I thought you were talking about the kind of scenario like, I don't know if I should even say this guy's name. I don't want to get him involved because he's a hothead. But okay, let's say a really killer singer from a 90s band that really, really kicked ass for about 3 albums. Okay, and we'll leave it there. Goes on and sells his time to people. And I was wondering if he does it through one of those types of websites where he goes in and says, hey, happy birthday, this is so-and-so, your son wanted me to give you a shout out, that's the same kind of thing. You get paid for that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a way to make money. I mean, I'm not bagging on the guy at all. It's a way to make money and stay relevant, Especially
that one
now.
picked up some steam. Yeah, a lot of people were on that. I know a few who were doing it, and yeah, so people would pay $200 to have you say, "Hey, this is so and so. I want to wish you, exactly, happy birthday or happy anniversary," stuff like that. So, yeah, that was one way to monetize things, and I guess you have to look at everything these days, especially in a pandemic when we're not out selling merch and touring. And how's it affecting? I mean, it's obviously affecting everybody, but your business and Skinz and what's
with nobody touring.
Yeah, it's just a standstill right now. No.
Yeah, it's been pretty rough. I mean, there are people that want to, I would say that they're doing video presentations. And they want to look really cool on video, which has been really awesome. And there's been a few people that are doing like, well, we're doing, a one-off video, shoot for something or whatever. And,
Sure.
Those really help. And then there's been a lot of, I can't say a lot of, but there's been a few of the more hopeful types. That's just, hey, tomorrow everything's going to open back up and my band's going to go out there and we're going to kick ass like we did last year, and those guys rock, so I'm not bagging on them. I mean, they're my bread and butter, but yeah, it's been rough. It's been rough not having the touring, especially when you have, specific people that you work with that you have, it's very visual. And you kind of count on that. You count on them being out there and being your face while because you can't do it yourself.
And especially probably in the spring when tours are getting ready, they're building new set designs and changing graphics, and that's, I would imagine, a busier time.
Yeah.
This time of the year would have
How's,
been.
and now you've been kind of staying busy to a certain extent because you work with a lot of people, and you work with Hollywood Vampires, which has been staying busy during the pandemic. Yes, to a certain extent.
Not
as
at all.
much. Okay.
No, we had a tour. The only thing that band had, we had a tour in Europe in August and September, but that just canceled. That was but it was in Europe though. Europe's a mess. We didn't.
Right.
I wasn't holding my breath for that tour to happen. We were all just waiting to hear something one way or the other officially. But since places like Germany and France are in complete lockdown right now, the only dates that I have on the books right now is we have a week of dates with Alice Cooper in July, but don't know if that's going to happen. It's just a wait and see. They're out, it's a couple of them are outdoor festivals, so maybe it stands a chance. I got my first vaccine shot today, the Moderna shot. California's opened to everybody 50 and over, and it was pretty easy. I actually made a reservation last night and drove 15 minutes north of here and got it. It's not going to be an option. It's just better get it done now than worry about it later, because touring, getting into certain countries, if you want to go to Australia, if you want to go to, I'm sure a multitude of countries, not to mention the employers, the vaccine's not, none of us want to go get a vaccine, but it's just,
right.
What are you going to do? It's like somebody said, we've all done much worse things to ourselves than worry about the vaccine. I personally have no worries whatsoever. I'm glad I got it. I got a second shot in 28 days and done. And if I get called to work because I like one of my bands is working in Australia right now. They couldn't take a U.S. crew because of they have to quarantine for 2 weeks when they get there, and it was expensive to put everybody up on salary and hotels for 2 more weeks and so forth. And it's a band that could get away with using a local crew, so they did that. But
what a financial strain. Yeah, to try and do that kind of thing, you're getting delayed like that, and it's and you would know more about this than I, but I know that the large venues, you're generally booking those venues 18 months out in advance, sometimes.
Usually a year ahead or something. Yeah, holding dates at least.
And there's deposits made on those venues, right?
And well, yes and no. I mean, if you're Live Nation, you probably own most of the venues. So.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Their tours, if you're a Live Nation tour, they're routing and putting you with the Live Nation tours. It doesn't mean there aren't some. Obviously, there's going to be some in between their dates and some other promoters mixed in there. But yeah, deposits, insurance, advertising.
But you've been how do I put this? You've been staying sort of busy with Glenn, right? Because Glenn does stuff on his own. And you stay with him. You're like his right-hand man, right?
Glenn, we've been working on a studio at his house. He's redoing a room he has, building a recording studio or / multimedia room so he can do live streams. And we built a new DW kit and rack, and kind of just upgrading stuff there. And not too much else. There's living in LA has its advantage. I'm also one of the few drum techs that still lives in LA. Everybody I know that's a drum tech has moved out. They've moved to Vegas or to the Midwest or somewhere more affordable. So I do get some work just because sometimes I'm the only person here to call. And so sessions have been there's been recording sessions, and I get called little things just to go over and tune drums in someone's home studio or that kind of random stuff. But I've been more or less doing my focus on photography and videography. That's something I've never had time to really focus on as a career because I haven't been home enough to really invest in that. But the pandemic opened that door up, and that's something that is thriving right now. And every band needs social media content, video content. I've done some videos. I've done some video for local companies, backline rental companies, working on their social media. Headshots, everything I can do. So I'm just sort of submerged in that. So making a little bit of money at that now, but that's an ongoing, that's a work in progress thing. But I'm working.
Yeah, and you're
Networking, but also I've got to build a solid portfolio of new stuff. I have some pretty good gear, and so kind of just getting that going, and I really enjoy that. That's a creative outlet, and it's also interesting. It's kind of like drums in a way, or it's art, and photography is subjective, sort of like drum tuning in a sense. It's how you want them tuned sometimes. I mean, there's definitely bad tuning, whatever, but up or down in pitch, or you know, AC/DC or bottom tuning, whatever it is. There's no rights or wrongs. Kind of photography is very similar. It's your eye and what you see, and exposure and things like that can be subjective. And again, there's boundaries, but I really enjoy it. It's rewarding, and when you do good work for somebody, it feels good. So that's been my lifesaver. And I'm just saturated. I'm in like the YouTube University of filmmaking right now. You know, there's so much information online. So I just kind of watch that shit all day long, and I go out and shoot every day. And I'm working on a documentary for a friend of mine, so I'm shooting a bunch of LA drummers. There's been a lot of little projects, and a lot of, so that's primarily what's keeping me busy. But yeah, that with Glenn. Done a few shows. I mean, I did some stuff with Bush over the last couple of months. They had a record release, and we did a week of rehearsals and three live streams for media outlets, and then we did an actual live stream for this company called Anthrax, which is trying to monetize live streaming. And that one we did at a big studio in Burbank, and it was like 8 or 9 cameras, and you log in, you create an account on the Anthrax site, and on your account you can select what camera you want to see. If you want to look at the drummer from stage right or left side, or from behind, singer, you can zero in, or you can watch the director's mix. And also it had a unique thing where everybody who was on the platform, it was sort of like a giant Zoom call audibly. Your audio was in the actual big picture. So at the end of a song, everybody in their living rooms or wherever they were watching could scream or yell, and there was actual audience reaction. We didn't get that on the live stage. It was still the same problem live streams have, is when you finish a song, you're just in a dark studio with 8 techs standing in front of you. There's no audience reaction. So for this one, the band was really good at pretending the audience was there, because we knew theoretically they were, and 80,000 people were on that stream at the height of it. So there was pretty good turnout for what it was. But we did the only 2 live shows I've done since March 16th were Bush. We did 2 fairgrounds that were parking lot drive-up shows, which were not as bad as you would think. The audience stands outside of the car. There's refreshments, there's food trucks, there's merch. It had a lot more energy than I thought it would. And people at the end of the song either honking horns or yelling and screaming. And I just remember looking around, flashing lights. I remember just looking around it was in the round, so we were surrounded by, I just remember seeing all the people standing in front of their cars, listening to a live band again for the first time since.
Wow, so the energy was still there. It wasn't lost on having to be packed in like sardines.
It wasn't lost. It wasn't like having a crowd against a barricade, but it was there. It was there comparatively, especially to like live streams. Like I said, there's it's just crickets at the end of a song. There, you have there's no energy coming back at you. So,
yeah, right.
Interesting, right?
Wow. Yeah, because I was wondering about that with the live performances being done up, on like drive-ins, like drive-in movies.
Mm-hmm.
If the people were going to respond positively, or if they were going to go, they could be faking anything over there. You know what I mean?
No, I think people are just desperate for entertainment and to get out and to. I don't think anybody would have cared. Everybody's just happy to be out and see a band playing. And so what they did was they broadcast into the car. You could tune into a frequency, and we had a PA, but it wasn't a screaming loud PA. The PA was meant to offset. I don't know, to offset what you were getting with the car, or however you chose. But it was a PA. But so it worked. That's all I can say. They did a concert series. There was somebody there for 2 weeks or 3 weeks every other night or something, and the local crews. Man, they were happy to be working. Just never has anybody been, like we all sit around and joke right now about the things that we used to sort of pick on or complain about on tour. Like, for me, it's always the food and catering or something, because I'd be walking to catering, they're just buying this cheap, shitty food or whatever. Or, you'd be playing casinos and you're meals are they give you tickets for the buffet, and it's just some horrible casino buffet food or something. But whether it's early morning calls and freezing cold, but whatever. Now everybody's like, yeah, I'll take the buffet at any casino, a 4 a.m. call outdoors in a snowstorm, whatever, bring it. It's kind of what those crews and everybody were like in those shows we did. It was just like, nobody cares if it's pouring down rain. I just want to go see live entertainment and feel some normalcy. So,
yeah, I would wonder, budget wise, a production of that manner, would it be more expensive to operate that sort of a scenario than it is just a live act?
You mean do an in the round type thing like that with cars versus? Well, see, I don't know. It was per car, so I think you could have 4 people per car. If I'm not mistaken, the tickets. I'm trying to remember if it was by person or by car. I feel like it was by the car, so you could, it was $100 or something. You could bring 4 people with you. So obviously they're not making as much on tickets as they would at a hard ticket sale thing. If each ticket was $30, $40, $50, whatever. I think everyone's operating on those things are operating on deals and discounts right now. The audio companies and everybody is not probably geek for everything. They want to get gear out and keep their crews working and bring money in. And also because they did it for 2 or 3 weeks, there all your labor costs would go because it's one-time build. It's up. All you have is just local crew per day, 4 guys or whatever, and then some lighting and a couple of techs. There's no daily setup and tear down labor. So it's cheaper. It must have worked. I mean,
well, they wouldn't be doing it more.
It went on. It happened. I'm sure that the bands too are working for decent rates. Not, what the band might normally get, because a lot of bands want to get out and do the same thing. You want to give a couple of days of pay to your crew. You want to do a show. First of all, you haven't done a show in 6 months, and it may be the only show you get to do all year. This parking lot show or whatever it is for whatever their budget was. There's a lot of incentive just to get out and do the shows, and that's what's been happening. There's been another live streaming stage at Third Encore in LA here, and they have sort of a plug and play setup, video wall, audio, everything is there. Front of house console, crew, technicians. You can go there, very. I don't want to say inexpensively. I don't know what they're charging, but I mean it's sort of an affordable way to do these live streams, and people are doing them. Some as pay-per-views, some are doing them for free. Everyone's deal is up to them how they want them, if they want to monetize it. But the bigger point is that a lot of bands are doing it just to get out and do a show. And
if those bands are smart, they have Patreon pages and
they have Patreon. They can sell merch on that. But these are a lot of bands too that would just be LA based that were here. They don't have to fly people in. There's so many bands that were just here that can do that. So yeah, just to get and do a show, because when the pandemic hit, everything happened so quickly. I remember thinking it's just gone forever. It just so quickly, the feeling that live shows are a thing of the past sort of set into a lot of people's heads. And it persisted. We're only just now seeing, I think now, the promise of hope of some normalcy coming back towards fall. I feel it. I think we're getting there for the first time right now, a year later.
Yeah, I've been seeing some friends posting that they've got some shows that are, and I'm like, dude, I so hope it works out for you, brother. I so hope it works. Because the industry just really, really needs it.
Well, some will and some won't. The bigger tours probably unlikely. That's the way it's unfolding. And the bigger tours, the multi-truck tours, multi-bus tours, have so much more money to lay out. They have a bigger crew. You have to buy those airfares. You have to buy those hotel rooms. There you do have deposits on buses and trucks. You have catering companies in some instances, buildings, advertising. The liability is a lot. Insurance companies don't want to take that risk right now to guarantee those shows are going to happen, or they have to pay out if the shows don't happen. So that's one thing. But the smaller bands are the ones that are going to work. They can play clubs. They can play the smaller venues. But when you're just one bus and trailer, 4-piece band and 4 crew guys or something, and that's your whole nut, you're not having delay. There's a lot more freedom there in being able to book a tour, and if one show cancels a club date or something, you're probably not going so upside down as on an arena size tour. where you more a lot of your profit may be in if one show cancels, you probably may go upside down on that whole tour. I mean,
Right.
so there's issues with the bigger tours much more, and especially the bands that can do fly dates to casinos on rental gear. They're going to work all every weekend. I mean, they're going to work all the time, and you're going to have all these little shows in the States, the Taste of Newport festivals that every city has, outdoor shows. Those are going to happen. You're going to get all kinds of bands, but bands that can do fly dates, smaller club bands, and some bigger bands that can do shows with limited production. Those are the ones that are going to work.
Yeah, because I would imagine after a year and a half, almost 2 years now, when fall rolls around and those tours start rolling, you've got 18 months of deficit.
Yeah.
And you can't just go out there and spend millions and millions of dollars on a production. You're going to have to take small steps to try and recoup and build yourself back up. So it might take a good 2-3 years for some of these production companies to be able to roll some really good tours, I would think.
I would think a lot of things are going to go through an adjustment period. Income for bands is going to be down a little bit. I don't know that meet and greets are going to come back right away. That's going to be a little bit different, which was a huge source of revenue. But you got to stand in a room with 400 people and shake hands. So something that'll have to get reworked there. Capacities initially may not be the same. I don't know when we're going to put 20,000 or 30,000 people seated next to each other back in buildings and have mosh pits or maybe, I don't know. I'm hopeful. The vaccine's rolling out pretty strong, and late fall we might hopefully see a fairly full return, assuming variants and other things don't come in. I'm not thinking about that stuff though. I think we're going to come back, but
right. I wonder if psychologically
it's been a long.
It'll be that people might. It might take them a while, to want to be cramped in like that and close up.
Absolutely. The money, you're also not going to be probably charging the same ticket fees that you were prior to this. This pandemic happened, happened at a bad time for everybody, but for our industry was on a high. I mean, everybody was working. It seemed like everything was selling out. I mean, I know everything was. It seemed like almost everything was selling out. Ticket prices were at an all-time high. Meet and greets. I mean, you just amazing how many people line up to pay $1,000 for a meet and greet.
Yeah, especially for an act
all day
like
long,
Alice.
And this, or any big. Yeah. So all that stuff. So I just wonder right now with the year of financial instability and everything that we've had, is everybody going to have that kind of money? So ticket prices are probably going to come down. All that stuff's going to come down a little bit until we can ship back up. So the industry, it's going to take a little while. There's a lot of talk now about crew and who's still going to be available. How many people have moved on from the industry and migrated into other stuff? How many will come back?
Out of necessity, yeah. And, I had read, and I don't know how true this is, but I had read that Live Nation, because they were taking such financial hits, that 85% of that market share got purchased by Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates. I don't know how true that is, but if it is true, I would imagine that would have implications on the U.S. market.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what implications that'll have, but it is that was a story earlier on in the pandemic that a Saudi Arabian company maybe put like $600 million into Live Nation. I don't know how that influences anything. If it does, if it's just investment, if it's just money they needed to park somewhere, and Live Nation needed money, and there was a time to get a stake of ownership in a company that kind of dominates the industry right now. I think AEG borrowed a lot of money. I've also heard, though, from other people that Live Nation had a profitable year somehow. And I don't know if it's just sitting on so much money because they were still sitting on a lot of ticket money that they had invested. And as everybody did well, sort of in the stock market in certain areas, Live Nation may have profited they may have done well on holdings. They cut back and cut staff down and everything pretty early on and took measures. A lot of baffling things about this pandemic and how certain companies survived and how it wasn't worse. I personally thought the stock market we would have been in a depression at some point, but that's not what happened for the most part.
You're right.
We actually got through this. We got through this pretty damn well, and we're not in bad shape right now. If things don't get worse, if they get better from here, we're okay. I think.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I was expecting a lot worse, and I was expecting, I mean, I've got that certain element to myself that goes, oh man, I better be careful. Pretty soon, people are going to be trying to break into your house for a loaf of bread. And thank goodness that hasn't happened.
That's what we all thought.
It could have gone that way pretty quickly. Luckily, it did. So.
Yeah, well, we've seen in LA, we've seen a tremendous uptick in homelessness and in crime.
Here as well.
The neighborhood's not the same, and after the riots, the police took a beating from a lot of different directions there, and they're out there right now. They're in force. You don't see them, but if you call them, they're here. I mean, they're on it. I think they've just really prioritized their efforts into violent crime and to more serious charges. They're not so much concerned with, like, I don't think you can get a traffic ticket in LA right now. I don't think the smaller stuff, which is the nuisance crime, like your car being broken into or something. Those are the crimes that.
Right.
But they don't give a fuck about that. If you call them though, if somebody's trying to get in your house or there's a man with a knife or a violent crime or anything happening, the helicopter's there in about 90 seconds, and 7 police cars are there in 91 seconds, and they're aggressive. So they're going after it. But there's a lot of crime that never used to be in LA. Just people will pull up behind you and jump out, tackle you, take your watch, phone, and take off. Watch thefts, Rolex thefts, jewelry, simple stuff like that, but home crime. It's all been an uptick, but there's desperation out there.
Yeah, it's pretty much out here as well. I mean, we're pretty much a sister city to what you got going on there now, and and in some ways probably a little worse. But
could be.
It's I hope they get it figured out. I hope they get it all figured out, and the city council gets their heads out of the sand and figure out that they got to do something. And but it's not helping.
They will
having everybody out of work.
They will. I think there's just steps in it right now. I mean, the homelessness. What is the answer right there right now? Where do you tell everybody to go? I mean, they just evacuated this lake down here. Echo, I drove by it recently, and I could not believe how many tents were out there. I'm used to seeing it at the underpasses and in various places in LA, but I drove around. It was like a festival grounds at Vakken. It was like hundreds and hundreds of tents, and I said, "Holy fuck!" I had never seen. I was like, "Shit!" But so they just recently closed that down. They kicked everybody out, made everybody leave, and they put a fence up around the park. I don't know, where do people they got to go across the street and now live on a street corner? They kind of had a safe place to live on a park by a lake, and there's no easy answer right now.
Yeah, that's true.
There will be in the future, but we're still in the middle of the pandemic right now. And I don't know.
Yeah, I just imagine the danger those people must feel. Pretty much every hour,
every day,
every night, every day. Yeah, because any second, everything that they have can disappear.
From numerous ways too. Numerous ways, not just mentally ill homeless people stealing their stuff while they're gone for a few minutes or whatever. It's also very gang controlled. It's very drug infested, and the gangs control drugs. I watch these local documentarians interviewing homeless people in LA all the time, and it's such fascinating kind of what's going on there. And they talk about being extorted by gangs for panhandling on certain street corners. that to me, I'm like, damn, dude, you're not only are you homeless, you're having to panhandle on the corner off an exit on the 134 or the 101, but you're being extorted by a gang for a certain amount of money that you take in every day to be allowed to panhandle there.
Wow. Man, yeah, I would imagine it's probably the same out here. We just don't see that deep of it.
Probably.
You know what I mean? And it's not so apparent. I mean, I've had where I've been driving home recently, and I come to our favorite interstate out here is I-5, which of course cuts through your area as well, and
comes right through here.
Yeah, and
today,
and on this I-5 overpass, I'm coming home one afternoon, and here's this guy with his sign over there, and he comes over to my window and he says, "Give me $10 or I'll knee in your door." And that just doesn't work for me. I'm not going to give you $10. What that does is it makes me angry. Yeah. Because you're threatening me. And why? I don't even know you, man. I don't know you anything. And I'm like, you're more than welcome to try, man. I'll give you 3 holes through your lungs before you make 3 steps. I mean, but it's like, I shouldn't have to feel that way, and it's a shame, but I don't want to get too deep into politics. We try to kind of avoid it if we can.
Steer clear.
Yeah, because it's what a hole you can fall into, But
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no doubt. But your show is called Drums and Guns. Right?
Drums and Guns, and there's a reason for it. So guns is kind of like a loose, open interpretation word, and also it rhymes really good with drums. But basically, what it means is whatever the hobby is that the guest is into, and we'll talk about it. Like yours is obviously photography, drumming, and teching. But teching is your job. Drumming is fun.
That's number one.
Yeah. But photography is your hobby, and videography, yeah. And it's saving your life right now. I mean, it's
hobbies.
It's putting food on the table right now.
A couple paid gigs so far, but I'm building on that, and that's a work in progress that I'm no doubt gonna pursue and stay in. That's always something I wanted to do. But no, guns are cool too. Living in LA, I lived in Miami for 15 years before I moved to LA. The other city you want to own a gun in. And in Miami, everybody owns a gun, but there they have much looser carry laws. And I remember I got certified for a concealed weapon permit in 2 hours for $40 at a high school classroom one time. It's just off-duty police sign up to teach the course, and it's a 2-hour course. You sign a piece of paper, and they give you a piece of paper, and you're authorized to carry anywhere except for an establishment that sells alcohol, predominantly alcohol, or a sporting event. There's a couple, and they teach you a couple of things about how you could get in trouble having a gun in the commission of a felony. What certain things are felonies, like a speeding, or I don't think speeding was a felony, but there were certain car citations that could put you anyway. California, not so easy on the concealed weapon permit. California's got much different gun laws. But I am a strict owner and believer in self-defense, and that's all my interest has ever been, short of going to the gun range for sport and to stay active. And so I never hunted or done anything else with guns, but for self-defense in my home, always.
So now what
locked and loaded, and
what is your home defense choice?
Glock 23.
Okay. All right.
40 cal. Okay. And I like that gun for a lot of reasons. That's only I've had 2 of those. I should have a pistol just to have something with a more 100% guaranteed fire rate. Occasionally, a semi-automatic, but I don't sweat that. What I want is just protection if I know somebody's trying to get in the house or someone in the house. I think you're a fool if you don't. It's just common sense to have that level of protection. I don't take it any farther than that. I don't take it on the road or anything like that. I know people that do. I don't have that. I don't live in that kind of fear or that kind of paranoia. But yeah, I'm not going to be sitting in my house and have somebody coming in the back door, kicking the back door in, and be defenseless.
Mhm.
And also living in North Hollywood or in Miami, both we have high incidences of home invasion and crazy people.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm a big proponent of that, and so I keep my certifications and all that stuff up. And I went and bought a lot when the riots happened. I'll tell you that. I felt, because like when I lived in Miami, I was always prepared for when you have hurricane stuff. So you obviously have water, probably a generator, fuel. You have things you need so that if a hurricane hits, even though you do have 3 or 4 or 5 days warning when that's going to hit, the stores empty out the next morning.
Right.
So you either bought it in advance, or you're that guy that's waiting 10 hours to get a sheet of ply, whatever. We're roadies. You think of advance of this shit. We don't wait until the problem's too late. So guns the same. And I just realized when those riots happened that there's no amount of police that's going to save you if people are trying to get into your home. At that point, the police were completely. There was nothing they could do. They were overwhelmed. The only thing they could do is stand by and try and protect what they could. But if people were here now, those riots never went into residential homes, even on Melrose Boulevard, where they burned, basically tore to Melrose, burned and looted our residential homes, of expensive residential homes. Not one that I'm aware of ever got touched by anybody. Nobody ever went that direction with the riots. It was all against businesses. It was all against, sort of but had they?
Right. It's a different story. There was a gentleman that had told me one time years ago, and I believed him because, he's killed people and I hadn't. Now, granted, he was in the military and he had to do it.
The day's not over yet, but yeah.
Well, yeah. But he goes, there are certain people that do not have any qualm against taking your life because they don't think like you do. And he goes, and sometimes you'll be able to see it. You'll see it in their eye. You'll know when your life means nothing to them. And that's when you better have first strike. Because if you don't have first strike, they will kill you. And, I never thought I'd be in that situation until I was. And I wasn't armed. And it scared the living bejesus out of me because I had no way to defend myself.
That's the fear right there. And that's where that's where you don't want to be.
You never want to be. Yeah. And basically the only way I got out of it was because I just reached behind my back like I was armed. And the guy took off. But it was the only way that kept me from getting a cracked skull from a baseball bat. So.
And the feeling there, though, is it's such a terrible feeling to be in that position, not because you're about to get killed by the guy, but because you know that you had a way out of this and you just weren't prepared. It's sort of, that's the feeling I would have. If somebody were coming in my back door right now, some meth guy on asphalt kicking in the, and I wasn't armed or didn't have any way to protect myself, that's the feeling I would have. I would just feel like such a fucking, because you probably had it on your list of things to do or something, I should have done it. Gosh, but there's a lot of peace of mind just knowing that you're okay. All right, so here's the other thing: is having lived in Miami all those years, I saw hurricanes destroy neighborhoods, toothpick entire neighborhoods, and people who hours ago lived inside their homes now live outside of their own homes.
Right.
And I saw the National Guard walking through those homes with machine guns in groups of 4, and I saw the heavy looting and the crime that happened. Same thing happens up here when there's fires in Malibu and those houses get evacuated. When they call an evacuation zone, there's looting. That happened a lot in recent fires here. And there's the big obvious one here that comes with no warning is the earthquake. So when the earthquake happens, the home that I'm in right now, I might be living outside of, 10 minutes from now. And once that happens, so I'm super prepared for that kind of stuff. Like I keep in my car stocked things that I would need. I have an emergency supply bag, case of water, change of clothes, sunscreen, hat, sunglasses, things that if you're all of a sudden, I have 2 backpacks next to my bed that are with all my important stuff that I would need if I had to get up and get out of the house. And this is also for fire, or you just prepared that way. I've always been that way. But a gun, you're not going to have emergency services. Telephone poles, trees are going to be down, structures, emergency services aren't going to be there. There could be cracks in the road too big to even get through. So you're going to be on your own, and to be on your own in some nice sweet town in the Midwest, you might be all right, but in North Hollywood, you're going to be devoured by bad elements from various parts of LA, because it's just
the city will eat up everyone it can get.
What's going to happen. So either prepared or you're not.
Yeah, I advise everybody to have a bug out bag, just to be prepared. And if you can do it in a manner where you don't feel uncomfortable, to have at least a way of providing food for yourself in it. Yeah, whether it be through hunting or foraging or foliage that you pick up, or a book telling you what you can or can't eat out there. But something that keeps you separate from the system, so that you're not reliant upon somebody else for it. Because I say, if the entire system goes down, everybody's going to be looking out for number one. Nobody's going to be looking out for you. And I feel that if that situation comes down, I need to be able to, defend myself, defend my wife, and then the neighbors come second. Friends come second and third. But beyond that, it's get the hell out of here. Get away as far away from the house as you possibly can. Get away from the city, get away from the town, as far up into the mountains as you can, if you can. And try to build a little.
I keep a full tank of gas.
Yeah, full tank of gas. Yeah.
I refill just below a quarter tank. It's just a habit for numerous reasons. One, also, if I had to leave this for earthquake or fire or whatever else, I still have a car to go to with heat and climate control and my stuff in it to sleep in, and that's going to have to get me far enough away from this town if this town doesn't have services and is got an issue. So fuel. That's I remember in Miami, I was when Hurricane Andrew hit, which was the big one, 92 or whatever. I remember driving around South Miami on Federal Highway. I remember it was like, I need to find a bathroom, so I thought I'd go into a gas station. There were no gas stations. It was just gone. Everything was gone. You couldn't get fuel. And that was a narrow storm. Go a few miles north and things got normal pretty quick. But just saying.
Yeah, I lived in Florida for 18 and a half years.
For the unexpected.
So I got to experience, all through the 80s and the 90s down there. So I got to experience a few hurricanes. I was in Tampa area.
What city?
Tampa.
Oh, you're in Tampa, yeah.
Yeah, and then when I was younger, I was over on the other coast in Melbourne, right over by the.
That's what I feel like. I remember you being in Tampa or Melbourne. How long ago? Not too long ago. How long? When did you leave there?
Almost 20 years ago.
Oh, all right.
But I've been living out here almost 20 years. It was actually Jason that kind of came out here and visited him and kind of figured we better move out here. So we moved out here. But over that 20 years, man, we've been watching this place. Gosh. You know what? I remember when we very first moved out here, at the time, it was like you flipped on your blinker when you're on the interstate. You put on your blinker. People would slow down and they'd wave you in. And then within about 7 years, it became you put on your blinker, they speed up and flick you off. It's like, wow, the attitude's changed quick. Yeah, so it's pretty crazy.
I moved to LA in 2000.
Do what?
Everything's changed. Everywhere's changed. Yeah. When I moved to LA in 2000, we slept with our windows open at night. Doors being locked wasn't but not this LA right now.
Yeah, I looked up.
I don't even walk at night. This neighborhood is even. Go ahead.
Oh, I went on Google Earth, just out of curiosity, to look up my own childhood home of when I was a little kid. And it was, I remember it, because we'd go out in the woods, we'd hunt alligators and stuff like that. It's so redneck and everything, but that's the way we lived. And so playing around in the swamp,
Right.
and I see
Tampa.
that swamp is actually all condos now, and it's all just a big freaking city. The whole entire town is a big city now. And it's like, man, I don't even recognize it. It's kind of crazy.
I think Florida has built out everywhere that it can. South Florida, I think it's built out. I don't think there's land they can still build on. That's why housing got so expensive in the last 10 years, 20 years. And it's continued to grow a lot. Even Miami, which is one of the more expensive cities in America now, is nonstop growth and a lot of industry moving to Miami. There's a lot of because it's still kind of affordable there compared to. It is an expensive city in terms of your day-to-day things. Like a Starbucks is more there than here, and certain things are more. But it's still cheaper for a lot of industry and businesses to locate there and operate there than it is, especially for instance California, because you don't have that 10% tax. There's less regulation and business tax and so forth. So they're getting a large influx of tech industry from California right now. Miami is. People are leasing up a lot of office space down there and relocating their companies. So it's interesting. I don't know. I lived there a long time, man. I just outgrew it. I love LA.
Yeah.
I can't outgrow LA.
Yeah, we were there a few years ago.
In my opinion.
And I was a total tourist. I mean, we went with family and stuff. It's like, oh, we got to go see the Hollywood sign. We got to go to Disneyland. Totally did the tourist shit. But, I remember being young and starting off in music and everybody taking off and going to LA. Everybody got to go. If you want to make it, man, you got to go to LA. And it's like, every single one of those guys, not one of them made it. They all went there and they all moved back to Florida.
Well, all right. So Florida had a good music scene back then, first of all, in the 80s.
It did.
And
Fort Lauderdale.
The early 90s. Fort Lauderdale, you did too. You had Rocket Club and all those places in Tampa. You had, bands could tour year-round playing a different make a good living. You could play work on your record and your original stuff in between. You could still make a good living with the band. And it just had a great Miami had a good metal scene. North Miami did, and there were a lot of recording studios. There was a lot going on there, but no, it's still LA. I feel today, even if you're gonna try and I still think it's the best place to be. A lot of people move here, and not everybody makes it.
Right.
Depending on what their definition, because you're sort of seen and be seen. At least you're here. If I run into people I know all over town, I get work just sort of simply by living here. Sometimes, a lot of times,
right.
It's still but it's my favorite place in the world to be anyway. So it's kind of a win-win. I could go to Vegas like a lot of people and save money and work out of it, but I don't want to. I love LA.
Would you say
it's been good to me since I've been here?
Would you say those days in LA are gone that were
no
where you okay, well, let me finish now. When you would go out and you would play a club, like you'd go play the Whiskey, and record execs would send, talent seekers out there to check you out. Hey man, check out this guy, he's the hottest new thing on drums, or this guy's the hottest new bass player or whatever. And then you're going, man, we got signed by that. Is that still going on in LA?
I think so. Obviously things are a little bit different than what it was then. I know what you're talking about when you do record label showcases and a bunch of executives would come out and say, but no, it's just different now. And there's, look how the format has changed. First of all, artists can become popular. And I don't even know if those people will come out to see you until you already are popular on social media. You can develop a following on social media before, and that's almost like a prerequisite, I think, for if you are an industry executive thinking about putting money or signing a band as management or to a label. I think you have to have a big social media following first. You can do that on your own, and as the artist that generate a good buzz. Whereas it used to be generating that buzz by playing shows at various clubs around town. Now it's just sort of through social media. But I follow that stuff pretty closely, and I see what people, and I see a lot of artists that do get good social media followings and then generate label interest or management. I see bands coming out of LA constantly. So it's still here. The creative community is here. The PR, the social media companies. LA is still home to all that stuff. It's still the one place where you want to be. And there's still those venues in LA that showcase new music and new artists all day long. Those venues will put 5 artists a night, and artists get popular in Silver Lake, in Echo Park, in West Hollywood, in wherever they're kind of nesting. And so, yeah, it absolutely still exists.
Yeah, we saw a big change out here with the club scene, and it used to be a lot freer, but then before the pandemic, it got to be where it became more of a pay to play type scenario, and which of course Florida wasn't like that. Florida wasn't pay to play at all. I mean, you just went out there and you played your gig, and hopefully there was door money when you left.
Well, the clubs paid pretty good salaries for bands to come in for 7 nights. You had all those circuit bands.
Yeah, and like with any market, Florida, it's the same as out here. You basically, you become friends with the club owner or whatever. You basically got it made. I mean, you're pretty much golden if you can be cool with them, and and they're going to ask you back as long as you're pro and stuff. But
I mean, I guess what we've seen, though, in general, has just been the general decline of like nightclubs. I think as a whole, compared to the 80s and 90s, where that's kind of what we did in nightclubs. And I know in LA anyway, most of the good clubs here, they're all gone. Sunset Strip is. You have the Rainbow Room, the Whiskey, which is the pay to play. The Roxy is still moving, and they're the breaking artist, which I define as driving by any night of the week and seeing a line going 2 blocks around the corner of people waiting to get in for an artist I've never heard of. That happens all day long, but those are the new artists. So they have that following. But House of Blues, Key Club, a lot of your other standards and all the great places in LA, there's been a shift, I think, everywhere in the country a little bit. But
yeah, definitely more towards social networking, no doubt about it. And people having to basically use and depend on social networking to get their following. And if you can get enough views, then you get the it's funny how it works. The monetization of social networking in general it's a totally different creature than the way it was 20 years ago. You put bills out, now you just make a Facebook post and hopefully people come to your show.
Or more than that. You can be very talented, first of all, because of technology and what you can do with cameras and things these days. You can make a pretty badass video if you're creative. And look, the whole thing is, how creative can you be? That what an artist is and what an artist does to come up with something that's truly unique or truly different or truly something that people are going to find interest in. So you can create a video in your house, decent, high quality. You can put that on numerous websites now. TikTok has been a great spot for talent. I think it's like a talent showcase in a lot of ways. TikTok and your other sites, Instagram and there's a lot of outlets today, YouTube and Facebook and whatnot, to promote your music. But yeah, it's how and so if you can be creative enough and put out something that's interesting, then people will. Talent rises. If it's good, people will watch it. You'll gain followers, and you'll gain followers as an artist or as a band on social media. And when you start getting 1 million followers on social media for a band that's not signed or unheard of, that draws a lot of attention. But and you can do that today. And there's bands going totally independent outside of the system anyway. They don't even going through agents and or asking for. Or not agents as much, but labels. Yeah, it's a whole different business.
Yeah,
but
true.
it's also, and they're balancing streaming. That I keep hearing that's starting to balance out a little bit. You still have to have an insane amount of streams to make a lot of money on streaming, but I think it's getting better. It's where for a long time people weren't getting anything out of streaming, it seemed like, but I think that tide's starting to turn a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like with every new step in this web technology with the streaming and everything else. Every time you get a new step, it gets goes through that spell of nobody really knows what to do with it. How can we exploit it? Let's get as much as, and then let's leave, and then it becomes more governed, if you will. It's just funny how it works out that way.
Yeah, it's funny how it works, and you have to be a master at social media these days. So that's also an important part of it, or hire somebody that is.
Mm-hmm.
There are some tweaks you can do to a video to use your. It's not just releasing it to the wild. It's very carefully, strategically planned thing with. And there's all kinds of sites and tags and things involved in making that successful. So that's I mean, tours today have social media people on tour too. I think that's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
When tours have social media, I forget what that title is called, social media person or whatever. That's a necessary thing on tour these days.
Yeah. Because you got to put out what's going on stage tonight, or what's going on, on the bus tonight. And if you could keep people enthralled and you keep them subscribed, engaged, right?
Right.
That's where I'd love to see I'd love to see a model as a fan where I can buy sort of inner circle time. Like the band carries around the camera, I can tune into the tour bus for 10 minutes and save the other 20 minutes for the setup or what have you. So I can buy, allotments of time as a fan. Now, granted, they're going to have to be on probably better behavior.
Or not.
I'm sure. Yeah, or not, I guess, and they're
not
explicit content, I guess. But I'm still kind of, because I'd love to see the way he works, that Mike works. I'd love to get that real behind the scenes and nitty gritty. And I don't know that that's available. Maybe it's been done. It just hasn't come to my attention.
Well, there's a demand for it. People love to see behind the scenes stuff. We've done experiments like with Glenn. We shoot all kinds of drum cam and setup pictures, and sometimes it's those pictures just of a drum kit half built in an empty arena that get many more hits than what you would think would be the more popular one. But yeah, I don't know if anybody, I don't know. See, I always thought, remember years and years ago, Madonna came out with a movie that was her on tour. She was like one of the first people to do that. And it was all sort of B-roll and footage of her backstage at tour and what goes on. It was a movie. But so then you had Ozzy Osbourne's reality show that was sort of went back there a little bit, but slowly we've gotten in this place where I think somebody just needs to do a straight up reality show with a touring band, a big touring band, but somebody's got to be like it's got to be probably a pop artist, maybe like a Miley Cyrus tour that has 20, that has 15 dancers, that has a big entourage, that has a lot of money.
Got a lot of drama.
And you could follow around a lot of drama, simply put.
Yeah.
That would be interesting to watch. I don't see anybody doing that. I mean, I think it should be done. I think even Kiss on their farewell tour should probably be doing that. Metallica does a cool thing. Have you seen the tuning room videos?
Mm-mm.
You ever seen their tuning room? Go to just YouTube Metallica tuning room. They video their warm up in their tuning room before a show every night. So it's like 40 minutes of them, in ears, everything, a whole nother guitars, a whole nother set of techs that even do it. It's amazing.
Yeah,
that stuff's great. People love that. So
that's what you got.
Seems like an easy pitch.
Yeah.
Seems like
you would think,
particularly during the pandemic,
it'd be done.
Yeah. Because you gotta, it's a way to stay relevant and stay engaged with your audience, right? I like the idea though. It would be really cool if you could do that. If you could have an artist that you watch but then what artist is going to go? Because even Ozzy Osbourne, I'm interrupting myself a lot, but even Ozzy Osbourne says that doing that show kind of sucked because you always have to be on. You never can relax. You're constantly on for the show. And so your artists, that go out there and bleed for 3-4 hours and give everything they've got, they don't want to do it for another 16.
Well, that's why I think a tour would be different. Like Ozzy did it because that was on him specifically in his family life, and they had cameras in the house in every room. What they had to do was record 24 hours a day to be able to. They had to record 24 hours a day for several days in order to get enough interesting footage to make an hour long show, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you need all that, but if you do it because you're not the content specifically about that artist, it's really the tour and the backstage nitty gritty stuff that goes on. So it would be your tour manager, all your dancer. Again, believe me, there is so much that happens. There's so much inter-crew, personal, just on our own tours. It's hilarious sometimes. When you live on a bus with 12 people for years, you get to know those people so well. You fight. It's brotherly love. It's never anything, but it's in the heat of the moment, and somebody's leaving the bag of chips open all the time, and you're like, why the fuck do you open a bag of chips and then walk away and leave it wide open for hours so they go stale so nobody else can eat them? Like, that simple thing becomes but there's so much drama and so much hilarious stuff. People get in so much trouble in such weird situations. I mean, so it should be done, but I guess nobody wants. I don't know.
Have you gotten in trouble?
Have I? Oh, well, I don't know. It depends on what trouble means. Definitely had some good times over the years. I mean, touring touring in the 80s was much different than when there weren't many rules back then, and drugs were much more acceptable and a part of the industry. And you could have 25 people back to your hotel room after a show and nobody cared, and you can't do that stuff today. It's more sterile, and the drug culture, and I guess maybe it's different depends on who you work for or whatnot, but at least me, I'm 54 years old. I've calmed down a lot, and most people my age have. So in the 80s, there was a lot more things that don't happen today happen. There, I had incidences of having guns pulled on me maybe 3 times at gigs in the 80s, and you didn't have communication like you do now. That was pre-pager. I was lucky to get to tour in that time frame. It was pre-pager, pre-cell phone, all that, 86, 87, 88. And there was just not a lot of rules, and that was
you guys all have
much more interesting times. Now you're being watched. Now it's a corporate business. Now you got Live Nation and a lot of people. You have to be, now it's. But that I'm still saying, there's plenty of hijinks out there. it's still there in a lot of regards. But what were you saying, Jason?
I was going to ask what your actual role is. You've mentioned tuning and setup, and I was wondering if part of miking the kits and are you swapping out snares because the song's in a different key? Like what is your activity at a performance?
Oh, all that stuff. Load-in, unloading in the truck. I supervise backline coming out of the truck in the mornings when that's. Then I start building drums off stage somewhere while the stage is being set with lighting and everything they're doing up there. Then my drums get either forklift or however on stage, and then it's head changes. Maintenance is a big thing. My Alice Cooper's my number one gig. That's the one we work. Alice works a lot. That's like 100 shows a year, and it's cool, great artist to work for, and it's a great camp. And the shows also it's very international, so there's great travel involved and whatnot. But the maintenance end of it, because we get to build these cool kits with Glenn, X, and the drums, electronics. the maintenance end of it, anybody with a big kit will tell you it's like having a classic car. It's very similar. There's always little pieces to maintain. There's a lot of pieces that have moving parts, pedals and hat stands and thrones and there's a lot of spots, weak spots. Anyway, so it's all that stuff. And then it's cleaning a lot for me. I have a big Gibraltar chrome rack. It's fun to clean every day. And for me, I like, and most guys will tell you that for a car, also like a classic car, to shine, and drums to shine, and cymbals, everything to be. That's just pride and passion in what you do. So it's all that stuff. Then we have sound check. We do a line check early in the afternoon, and the band either come in or not, or don't come in. These days, the band doesn't come in a lot for sound checks once we get going, because we're all on. Everybody's on in-ears, and we're able to reproduce the sound every night pretty accurately. And even the past year, the whole band went to Kemper's, so they're not even using live amps on stage, which made everything so much more consistent, because the Kemper sounds. You're not dealing with the variables in miking a room and how it sounds and stage volumes and stuff that you normally wear. So our mix is pretty consistent every night. So no need for bands. You usually come into a sound check. And no, it's set up practice rooms, and then the assisting end of it, when Glenn or whoever I'm working for gets to the building, making sure they're comfortable and have everything they need and sticks and stuff in their dressing room. Ordering supplies, ordering heads, ordering parts, maintaining all those relationships, thinking about what gigs you have next. If you have fly dates with rental gear coming up, you got to advance that stuff. Or if you're going to Europe and you have manifests, and to figure out what gear you're going to bring, and there's always just stuff going on like that. Then the show itself is so, like during the Alice show. And a lot of times, for most of the artists I work for, I get to run a lot of click tracks or electronics, which is good. Kind of the more the better. I like doing that stuff. And so with Alice, I run all the samples. We don't use any tracks in that show. That's a live band. The drummer gets a click in his ears. He's the only one, and that only goes sometimes a couple of bars in the beginning just to get out of one song into the next. And the Alice show's all back-to-back songs. There's no time to even think from when. So run those clicks, but they're very specific. They come in and out of certain spots, and sometimes they stop in a song, and I got to punch it back in, stuff like that. Then all the samples, the school bell, the Poison sample, the intro, the different things in the drum solo. I don't know. There's like 10 or some different samples and sounds that I triggered during the Alice show, and so then I have triggers and stuff on the kit for Glenn's drum solo, some different sounds. So I kind of toggle through different settings to give him different sounds on some pads that he hits just for drum solo to have fun with. And so getting through the show, and of course there's all the little things that can happen, dropping sticks or anything that could interfere with the kit not functioning 100%, or God forbid, sometimes bad cables or whatever happens during the show. If electronics don't work, then calling monitor levels if something doesn't sound right. It's everything. You just gotta. That's the part of the day I like the most, because you're insanely focused for an hour and a half, sort of riding that line, trying to get through that show flawlessly, and my day's not over till really like after the show. Then I can rest a little bit.